Bonjour. Bienvenue au festival SERIES MANIA pour cette masterclass que vous attendez tous, d'une immense star hollywoodienne, d'une légende du cinéma. Vous vous rappelez tous de son rôle de Mia Wallace, vous vous rappelez tous de pour Pulp Fiction, vous vous rappelez tous de Kill Bill, Tarantino, vous savez tous qu'elle est apparue dans 4 séries télévisées. C'est une immense star qui nous fait l'honneur d'être là. Vous allez être en plus le premier public à découvrir en avant-première mondiale, bien sûr, Chambers. Merci d'accueillir Uma Thurman.
Bonsoir.
Et Olivier Joyard, journaliste aux Untitled. Olivier, c'est à vous. Non, Uma, celle-là. Uma, this one is for you.
Thank you for the warm reception and good evening, everyone.
Je vais dire juste 3 mots en français. Ça y est, c'est fini. Je vais parler anglais maintenant. We're going to speak English. I think it's best.
Probably safer for me.
So we're going to have about 45 minutes to talk about your career, your work, some landmarks of your career, and also the work that you've done on television that you're doing now on streaming. And there will be 15 minutes for questions in the end from the audience. So, get your questions ready. Let's begin by the beginning. The very simple question that I'm always wondering, some people, when they're actors, they become actors because someone discovers them in the street when they're 19, and others want to be actors since they were 5 years old. So can you tell me a little bit about when did you first touch base with the idea of acting? Was it school plays? Was it something else?
Well, it was school plays, but I do think that we are also suggestible as children, and there's this theory that if you can see it, you can be it. And my grandmother, who passed away when I was 3, was an actress, my father's mother, and so I grew up, hearing about who she was and that she loved the theater, and I think it probably planted in my mind that it would be possible somewhere, somehow, and from there I was constantly doing plays, like a lot of actors. I felt more comfortable in the theater environment than I did in any other.
Oh yeah, so it was like a refuge or something? It was comfort?
I think it was a refuge. I think I was a bit dyslexic. I didn't really read well until I was about 9. And so that made me insecure, and I also grew really fast, and so I think it took me a long time to kind of feel my own center, but I did feel it amongst the people in the drama department. That was just always my haven.
And so after you heard about the legacy of your grandmother, and would you go to films with your family? Would they take you to plays and have you read theater? Was the environment like this in your family?
My mother particularly would take me to films sometimes, and I grew up in a college town. My father's a teacher, and so, yes, love of language and poetry was always just surrounding me. And I think also having struggled to read, like once I could read, I loved my words, and I loved receiving them from the great minds of writers.
And how did that transform into, wanted to become actually an actor? When did you take it seriously? In your head, not professionally, but like...
I think I told my mother that I wanted to be an actress when I was like 12, and she said, well, Uma, everyone does. It was really quite early. I don't know how I thought it was possible. I think that's probably what I think is maybe one of the miracles of my life. And for anyone, you have to have a vision of possibility in your life. And without that, there is nothing.
Yeah. And do you think people allowed that vision when they took you to see films, or was it someone in particular that helped you become what you became?
That's hard to say. I mean, there were many turning points for me. I don't know how I managed to do it. I mean, I moved to New York when I was basically 15 years old. My parents say, "Oh, you were very independent," but I guess I was. You know, I transferred my school, and I was cast in my first film by age 16, and pretty much never stopped working until I had children, and then I stopped and started.
And what kind of films did you like when you were growing up? Did you have role models, actresses that you admired? I think you talked about Doris Day.
I have talked about Doris Day just because I think she's undersung. I love Doris Day. But yeah, I mean, really pivotal things I remember watching. I remember my mother taking me to Reds, and I was completely overwhelmed by the romance of Reds. And I remember going to see Tess of the D'Urbervilles and Natasha Kinski in that movie, and then the things I just used to watch all the time, all of Meryl Streep's performances, Sissy Spacek, Diane Keaton, you know, and both Hepburns, you know. I enjoyed drama.
Yeah. And what would you say, as you just mentioned, you started working really early in your life, you know, you were still a teenager, and you did a lot of films very, very quickly. What are the sort of fondest memories that you have from that time period? I mean, you worked with Gilliam, Terry Gilliam, Stephen Frears, of course.
Well, when Terry Gilliam cast me in his movie, albeit very much an ingenue role, but I think that actually was the pivot that made me realize that it was real. I would dedicate my life to being in the dramatic arts, and I would work at it like an animal until I got sort of halfway good at it. And, you know, I'd seen Brazil with my brothers. We snuck into his film Brazil when I was underage to go see it, and I thought he was a genius. And flying to Cinecittà at age 17 and witnessing all of Cinecittà transformed by his imagination, a true auteur, I realized it wasn't just like me cheating out of school. It was a real beautiful art form, and that I could actually be part of it.
And how about Dangerous Liaisons, which was sort of a breakthrough, I mean, in the eyes of the public at least?
Well, it was a big breakthrough because also it came out before Baron Munchausen, and Baron Munchausen also suffered a regime change at the studio it was at and was sort of buried. It's actually a great, incredible movie if you ever have a chance to find like a dusty video or something. But Liaison came out before, and yeah, that was a really, you know, being surrounded at that age, it was just right after I turned 18 with working with Glenn Close and John Malkovich and Michelle Pfeiffer, and a young Keanu Reeves was in it as well. No, we never had a love affair, but boy, he was really beautiful. So anyway, yeah, that was an incredible experience. You know, I just saw myself as a student of them, and Stephen Frears, and I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, interesting word, student. You know, that you were. So you said that you learned a lot and you worked a lot. During that, did you go to acting classes, or what happened?
Yes, I did. I studied with a teacher in a classroom setting, method. I don't really think I'm that methody though, but I think it was good to practice. And then after that, I had a wonderful woman named Cynthia Huppler, who I worked with for many years, who was a graduate of Juilliard in New York, class 1 actually, which trained the American actor in the English tradition. And she worked with me one-on-one for many years on a lot of performances, and I think that she'd really helped me grow.
And then a few years later, after many other films, a film that everyone still talks about today happened, which is Pulp Fiction. And I think we should maybe watch the first clips that I've chosen. It's from Pulp Fiction. There are 2 scenes from Pulp Fiction. One everyone knows, I hope. And there's also a scene from Kill Bill Volume 2, which are 3 films that you made with Quentin Tarantino. So maybe let's watch this now. There's such a physicality about those clips and those roles. It's either dancing or fighting for your life, but it's always about that in a way.
Yes, I think actually it is always about dancing or fighting for your life. Life follows art. I have sort of 12 shades of PTSD just even watching that myself. Yeah, no, I mean, those were epic experiences.
What can you say about the building of the characters? Because I chose the first clip because basically your first appearance in Pulp Fiction is in a director's seat in a way, because you're directing the images and it's not nothing. It means something. I don't know what it means more than what I've seen, but
I never thought about that. But thank you for pointing it out. Yes, building the characters. I mean. I also smile just to hear Quentin's dialogue and watch his creativity. I mean, there's really not really anybody like him. So I'm very blessed that I had that experience. In the case of Pulp Fiction, I read the script, it was complete, and it was shot pretty much exactly as it was written. In the case of Kill Bill, I was we knew each other. It was many years later, and I got to be like a first frontline reader. Like he writes in felt tip pens in red and black, and he'd hand me a pile of paper, and I would usually. Some of this stuff was just so out there, it's not even in the movie. And my way of sort of communicating was I'd be like, and sort of like, and that was kind of like, because you never want to discourage if you can, right? So and he's such a sort of genius. It was, in hindsight, I truly feel blessed.
And would you say you also, on set, would you be able to, on Pulp Fiction, for example, the dance scene, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, I'm sure you've told that story many times, but it's such an incredible scene. Still, it's pure cinema in a way.
It is pure cinema. Well, I've been lucky enough to dance with John Travolta twice in my career. So it was pretty epic. I mean, Quentin really knew that he wanted that series of those specific dances, starting with the twist, and we choreographed it in a tiny trailer. They choreographed it. I was actually more afraid of the dance scene than I've almost been afraid of anything, because it was exactly to like my total like insecurity, being big and awkward and still quite young then, once I started dancing, I didn't want to stop. So it was kind of like a dream come true. Yeah.
So did it last for like a day or two? How long was the shooting of the scene? Do you remember?
Well, sadly, the dancing was very short, just an hour or so, I think. But being buried alive went on for weeks.
Okay, so I see the memories are different from those two scenes, I guess.
It was, just a different challenge.
Yeah. But in the scene, you're not losing to Travolta. I mean, you're really filmed as equals. That's really how it is.
Well, actually, Quentin did a lot of the handheld himself, and he was, as he was doing it, at one point he got so into it that he was dancing with us with the camera, and I think the cinematographer or something was like, maybe you want to steady that lens, but yeah, it was really fun.
There's something about this also in Kill Bill a lot. You act alone. A lot of times you're alone. You don't have someone to bounce out with. I mean, that's not English, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I've heard that it's sort of the most difficult thing for an actress or an actor to have no one to, you know, in front of you, or just a director, or act alone.
No, I mean, I personally don't think so. There's nothing better. It's like love. There's nothing better than being with the right person, but you're better off alone than being with the wrong person. So, you know, if there are the three speeds, like there's the perfect dynamic between oneself and one's part, really first and foremost, right? Which is also like love, being right with yourself, first and foremost. Took me a really long time to figure that out. But, you know, so yeah, those, in that order, I would say, it's quite interesting actually to have to concentrate and tell the story by yourself, and even without dialogue, which if you actually look at the Kill Bill movies, it's largely silent. I mean, there's very rare occasions that I get to jump into juicy Tarantino epic dialogue.
And do you think those three movies, how did your craft evolve? Because it was, you know, they were 10 years apart, and you were a different actress when you made Kill Bill than you were before. And
I think I was a better actress when I made Kill Bill. I mean, I better be. I was practicing. But I don't know. It's funny to see Pulp Fiction. I haven't seen it in a very long time. And my daughter's become an actress now. She's 20. Her name is Maya, and it just reminds me so much of her. You know. I see almost sort of, I see a baby in Pulp Fiction a little bit.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the bride, the character in Kill Bill, was more influenced by like maybe Gloria, the Cassavetes movie.
And Coffee.
Gina Rollins.
Pam Grier.
Yeah, Pam Grier, yeah. So,
and Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah?
Uh-huh. I actually thought of him a lot because of, you know, his incredible performances that really, he could say one word in a whole movie and rock your world. And, you know, I've always been very attached to language, and always have felt like that's when I'm at my best, or I have the most strength is when I'm using language. So to take all the language away from me and put me out there to battle through it was incredibly transformative for me as a person.
And also, that character is, in a way, very empowered, even though a lot of bad things happen to her, but she's empowered. And, you know, today in Hollywood, we see sort of a resurgence of female action heroines, like, you know, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel. It's the talk of the town right now. You did that, you know, back in the day.
I did.
What's your take on what's going on right now with those characters?
I think this is great. I mean, I think it's a correction, a long overdue correction. I've always thought I'm so happy, actually, especially because I do have a 20-year-old daughter who has decided to give her life to the theater and film and television, and she's actually in her own Netflix series. She's she's coming out in Stranger Things. But anyway, I'm glad to see better opportunity for women, and already just the difference between my young daughter's opportunities and films where she's working with lots of other women, and they all have parts, and they don't necessarily only talk about men, which is not a bad thing. I talk about men all the time, but it's one of my favorite subjects. But anyway, you know, it's just I think it's a long overdue correction, and really, actually, it seems like before women's lib, there were better roles for women, you know, in the days of Bette Davis and everybody. Then we went through like a strange period, but it's just I think it's good. I think it's good. It's growing pains for everybody.
Yeah. So you feel like your daughter is in an environment where she's less lonely than you might have been when you were her age, or in terms of.
I really do hope so.
Yeah, and just the idea of, just one last thing about Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction, but Kill Bill more about the action and the playing with your body and your strength and your being still, you know, a strong character. I don't know, how did you build that, and how do you relate to that?
Well, I trained for Kill Bill extensively, and there were a whole lot of circumstances that happened around Kill Bill, one of which was I just had a baby. I had my second child, my son, and I went into training when he was like 3 months old, and I was still nursing him, and I was really big. I'm someone who gained a lot of weight when I had babies. I don't know why, but I could only give birth at 190 pounds. Even though it was like broccoli or ice cream, 190 pounds, that's where we're going. So anyway, I had like once I gave birth to my son, I had like 3 more babies left, like hiding on each hip. So that was a very, and I've never been that athletic. So it really, actually, really did change my life in many ways. It taught me gave me my center.
Oh, you still have this in you today. You still keep that discipline and.
No, I'm not disciplined. I mean, you know,
the way you feel your body. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think it just changed me. I think I always identified as sort of awkward, and I don't think I saw myself as a physical person like that. I don't think I saw myself as being so strong. And when you train with Master Wu Ping and his team from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week, and you hurt so bad you can't walk up the stairs to your bedroom, it's like, wow, I did that.
Wow. Maybe let's fast forward to television, because you appeared in Smash, which was really a lovely show that had a guest star, a movie star that came to do a Broadway musical, that was the pitch for your character, Rebecca Duval. Let's watch a clip, 3 small clips from Smash, season 1.
You're too kind, that wasn't very good.
Yeah. Star power, that's what the clips is about, and the idea that the fear is always there, whoever you are. I thought, it's a very touching scene.
Yeah, I mean, they always say there's a healthy fear. I've started wondering about healthy fear. Having like suffered over things so needlessly, and I don't know, I sort of wonder, like, does the fear actually make you better, or does it just drain your energy before you do what you're going to do, what you're born to do? I don't know, it's a question.
But can you do anything against it?
I think realize that a little bit, but I was fearful this morning. And I was worried about like how today would go. It comes in, it's just being human.
Okay. And what made you decide to appear in that show? Was this, the attraction for musicals, the idea of embodying Marilyn, because the character played in the end of, if it's not obvious for everyone, but it's Marilyn. It's.
Well, as you mentioned, I have my little Doris Day fantasy. And where I wish I could have been a song and dance girl. And so that show, Neil Marin was the producer, and it just seemed like a fun, I'm not seen as somebody who, gets cast in musicals and stuff like that. And the business is so based on sort of like constant typecasting battles that you have, to try to break into new spaces and do different things. So, and that's always been like my mission. It's like try to break down the walls of whatever seems impossible.
That's a good mission.
It's exhausting.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, some people just don't bother.
Well, I mean, got a day, you better use it, right?
Yeah. So just I think you did master the songs, and you did learn. You said you had a fantasy about being a sing and dance person, which is the sort of what's Hollywood is about, the core of Hollywood. The Hollywood people from the 30s or 40s would do that, and now it's sort of a lost art. But is it something you trained, or?
I guess I just loved it so much as a child. I was never a good dancer. I constantly don't know my left from my right, but I remember my like high school dance choreographer, like this super intense woman, and was doing like a performance of Petrushka, and I was like in the chorus, and I just started moving the wrong direction, and this very petite ballerina lady was staring at me. She was just like, oh, so mad. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't know. I think it gives people joy. One of the other really, one of my other favorite things I ever did was Mel Brooks' The Producers, where I got to live that dream for a minute too, which was real joy. And that also I trained for extensively. Yeah. Just to do a few numbers, you know, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, of course. And what was the experience of shooting a TV show? I mean, this TV show is a network show. The pace is so different. You were talking about the Kill Bill scene that took days and days and days. Well, you know, I'm sure it's flexing different muscles when you're an actor and you're on, I mean, I'm not sure, I don't know, but I'm asking you actually. Well,
I had a very short arc on that show, and I got to do a couple dance scenes, which I also got to practice for, and so I was happy, you know. I sort of knew where I was going, and it was a nice cast, and you know, very, very fancy producers. Steven Spielberg was a producer, you know, all these great people were involved.
Mm-hmm. So, but the rhythm and the pace of TV didn't come as a shock to you. It was, things have to be so, you know, tight and quick on TV.
I've made everything from a $60,000 budget film to like a $100 million film. I've shot a whole story in 2 weeks. Like I did this thing with Richard Linklater once called Tape, where we were basically in one room. So, you know, if you knew your lines, you could get through it. But we rehearsed that like a play. But so, you know, I feel like I've sort of, you know, when we first started Kill Bill, we were in China and we were shooting 6-day weeks. It was insanity, you know, just to be swinging that sword 6 days a week. Finally, we cut back to 5 for a little while. But, you know, so I've just had a great variety of experience.
Yeah. So I guess it didn't seem that hard after all, after everything you'd done.
It's like you can't expect things not to be hard, right? I mean, you could get grumpy, but, you know, life is usually, you know, it comes from how much you give it, right? Anything creative is how much you prepare it, how much insight do you have, how much love do you have for it, and how much energy can that create? And that's what my experience has been.
You hadn't done that much TV before. You did an HBO film, I mean, made-for-television movie.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Hysterical Blindness. Yeah, you did win a Golden Globe for that, or you did? Yeah. So, but the idea of doing, you know, serialized television, was it obvious for you?
No. No, but I've been seeing so much interesting work on television. I watched television a lot when I was younger, between videos and TV. Like, all we wanted to do was watch television. I'll never forget my parents trying to stop us from watching television, and like my dad would come in and touch the top of the television set, see if it was warm, and then we'd be in bad trouble often. But and then I kind of stopped watching television, and just in the last sort of maybe 10 years or so, I've really found myself drawn back to it, and I've really loved a lot of the work I've seen on TV.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Do you think we're going through sort of a golden age, or at least an interesting age of so many shows that push the boundaries? And do you actually watch them? Because we're all like binge watchers in this room. We need, you know, we need to fill our weekends and nights. We don't know what to watch anymore. There's too much.
It's a good companion. When you get hooked on a show, it makes you feel less lonely. Yeah, no, I watch lots of stuff. Actually, my son became my TV partner about like 6 years ago, because I was like, I've got to watch more TV. I've got to like make time for it. And so we became TV partners, which means I watched like a broad variety of things. I remember trying to like get him to watch Homeland with me, and finally he was like, "Mom, you know, this isn't appropriate." It wasn't really. It would now be fine, but he's now 17 and very much a man. But this is when he was little. But so we watched a lot of like the Alienist, or I forgot what it was, the Simon's show. But anyway, yeah. So I had a partner. I got a lot of TV in too.
And you were also in the Slap on it, the American version of the Slap.
Yes, that was great.
And that's sort of
experience-wise.
Yeah. It's sort of a bold reflection on family and relationships, and it seems like, coming back to choosing the roles, it seems like you like choosing those, roles that are a little harsh and a little, now I don't know.
I guess yes. I mean, you choose your roles, and your roles choose you, in lots of strange ways. But I've been enjoying sort of trying to move back and make sure not to stay away from drama too much. I do love I'm really a person that's a huge enthusiast about almost every genre. I mean, and I've tried to sample being in almost every genre. I can't tell if I love comedy more or drama more, or like I'm jealous of the part of me that likes comedy, or jealous of the part of me that likes drama. There's like a little war going on. But, anyway, it's all a passion for me.
What do you mean by roles choose you?
Well, there's so many factors, what opportunities you find, what you think you're looking for, what sort of, what fantasy you can have about the people you're going to work with, right? Like, usually you sort of have to fall in love with the whole package in a lot of ways, and have a gut instinct and have faith and belief in because it's a very communal situation. It's not, unless you do a one-man show, but so you have to sort of fall in love with the whole situation.
Would you say you have sort of a desire to expand now? Because you've done, you've started in a Beau Willimon play on Broadway. You've been, you've done Edgy Lies from Trier films. Is that something that you're looking for?
I love Lars. So, if he asks you to show up, it's good to show up for him. Don't we all always sort of want to expand and grow?
Yeah. But many people would say Lars von Trier is difficult.
Yeah, but I think he's funny. Like, I remember looping my scene. I mean, I find his material very tough. I just think he's a real artist, right? But I actually find it a little rough on me. But I think he's a true artist, and he was like he would say to me like, "Oh, no one's ever done so much acting in any of my movies. You're basically like a ham. You kind of suck." And I'd be like, "Yeah, you're just a big softie." So yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I just find him. I respect him, and I think you can understand a lot of different stuff when you have a real foundation of respect between yourself and other.
Of course. We touched that a little bit earlier, but who do you think gives more weight to interesting female characters today in Hollywood? Is it film, or is it streaming or TV? Have you discussed that with other actresses?
I think it's everywhere.
You do?
Yeah, I think it's everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah,
sort of keep looking, So it's good fortune, it's good luck, and it's also support from fellow artists to see the best in you and to help find material together.
Mm-hmm. And how do you achieve that? Is it something you fight for? Is it something that, I know it's very...
I don't know. I don't think I don't know. I don't know how. Mm-hmm. It's an ever emerging process.
Mm-hmm. But are you somehow hopeful that the current awakening towards feminism and inclusion in Hollywood will have results, will produce a better working environment for people, better roles for women and for minorities?
It's definitely going to produce a better working environment. I mean, there were so many situations that I don't think you could have a worse working environment sometimes. I mean, no, actually, excuse me, let me take that back. There's a lot worse. than just having to survive that sort of stuff. But anyway, I think it's definitely safer. And I mean, in a certain way, I don't want this sort of thing to like crush people's creativity. It'd still be nice to be able to fall in love with your leading man and not get arrested. But you know, if you had one, like if it happened. But I don't know. You know, I think that we're just gonna have to find our way from a sort of really ignorant place to a liberated, creative place that's respectful.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel the change? Do you feel it? Do you sense
I think
it?
so, yeah.
You're here because you took with you that great TV show called Chambers,
Yes.
that you're doing for Netflix now. Maybe before we see a small clip from the first episode, you could just tell us the premise of the show? Not too much because there's a screening later, but you know.
Okay, yeah, I won't give away too much, but it's a family drama. It's a sort of supernatural mystery. And it's basically about a young woman who has a freak medical event of a heart attack and pretty much dies, and her life is saved because another young woman died that same night, and she receives her heart. And it's sort of supernatural mystery that starts tweaking itself towards the horror genre, but as a sort of part and parcel of a drama.
I see. And your role is the mother of the deceased young girl.
Yeah, I'm the grieving mother of the deceased girl.
Okay, let's watch that clip. It's a cool scene. It's a great scene.
I hope you all like it.
Edgy. If you could, before we take questions, because I think it's good to have some time for questions from the audience, so if you could tell us one thing to take away about Chambers, that, you know, what would it be?
Well, you know, this is so scary, as we talked about earlier, but, you know, I think there's a lot of personality in the show that is atypical, and there's a lot of sort of female energy in it, and I think there's a lot of heart, you know, at the same time as it's finding its path towards entertainment.
Right. It's because it was created by women, and it
yes,
was,
it was created by Leah Rachel, and the young woman that you see, who is the star, Sivan, is a lovely new actress that had the part of a lifetime, that I think probably stretched every muscle in her poor body. And I'm a producer on the show as well. And I don't know, there's a lot of great young people that are really, I think, special talents that you'll see.
So you get your heart in it.
I sort of feel like I'm almost like the godparent of the show and the character. There's wonderful young people in this show who I think play really specific, articulate characters. And I'm proud of them.